So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Professional Development Virtual Conference. This is a collaboration between California University of Pennsylvania and Clarion University. So thank you all for joining us. Attendees, your video and audio will remain muted during the session. If you have any questions, please use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. You may enter a question at any time, but it may not be answered until the end. So today with us is myself. I am the Assistant Director at California University of Pennsylvania, and Mark Conrad from Clarion University. We're the co-hosts with our guests today. So we do have our guest Allison here, and I apologize, Allison, your bio has just left my screen. So if you would mind giving a quick background about yourself, I would really appreciate that.
Of course. Of course. So my name is Allison Howell. I am a 2007 graduate of Clarion University. I graduated with a degree in communication, and I'm currently working in a few different jobs that lend my skills well. So I'm working as a senior account director of public relations at a company called Pascal, and it's a medically driven healthcare PR firm. So I do have some experience to give you guys if you are nursing or in the medical field at all. I also work as a community and brand manager for a company called Bad Yogi. And that is a yoga and lifestyle brand geared towards shifting perceptions in yoga. So I have been working in public relations for a little over a decade. I have been working with interns and hiring most of my career, and I'm really excited to speak with you guys today.
Perfect. Thank you. I apologize. Thank you, Allison. But today's session is resume and cover letters. And I do want everyone to identify that there are some additional events this week. So this is the second session of 9 that we have going on this week. So there are a variety of sessions going on that we want to make sure everyone's aware of. But today's session is on resumes and cover letters. So at this time, I will let Allison take over for real and get started with our presentation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And everyone that's joined, I just want to put out the desperate plea for if you have any questions whatsoever at any point, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I am completely okay with abandoning my plan for discussion here to answer what questions that you have, because I remember that as a soon to be college grad and then a college grad, my resume and cover letter was probably a pretty stressful part of my future job search. And I want to make sure that you have all the tips and tricks that you need to feel comfortable in creating a resume and cover letter. So today's presentation, breaking through the crowds in your professional job search, which you guys have the added benefit of being in the midst of a global pandemic right now, which obviously makes things a little bit more challenging and unique as you bring everything virtual, including this professional development course. So next slide. Why am I here? And why are you here? So why am I here? Today, I am here to give you all the information that you might possibly need to feel best equipped to create a cover letter and resume. You are here to absorb that information and let me know what questions or problems you have. Especially in this day and age, there's a fair amount of leniency that you can take advantage of in developing your cover letter and resume, depending on your job search, your profession, and I'm here to help you with that. One thing I would be curious about, if anyone feels like dropping it into the chat, just letting me know some of the majors you guys are coming from and what year in school you're at, just so I have an idea of if we're talking to more people that might have slightly more creative resumes or more conservative facing resumes and cover letters. And also if you are in the midst of a job search already, maybe you're preparing to graduate in December, that will be good to know as well. Next slide, please. So we'll get started just very quickly here. Today's focus, as you know, is resumes, cover letters, and we might even get into nailing the cover letter, nailing your interview, especially in an online. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I love that you guys are checking in here. Nutrition and fitness major. Very good. Speech pathology. I was a speech pathology major for a little bit as well. So I can help you guys out. Great to see you. All right, fantastic. So a few different areas that we're going to focus on for today's call. Obviously the resume and cover letter, but beyond that, areas of the resume and cover letter and some things that you should do for do's and don'ts there. Cover letters. Do you need one? Unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that yes, you do need a cover letter, and I'm going to make you update it most of the time when you submit to a job. Just checking your chats again. Awesome. Nice to see all you. So moving into the core sections of a resume. This is a little bit open to interpretation because as you get more professional experience, you might find that some of these sections shift. But for the purpose of today, I'm speaking to you guys all as new or upcoming grads. So there are some core sections of a resume, including the contact information, branding statement, which can be named a bunch of different things. We'll get into that shortly. Your areas of expertise and key skills, your work experience, volunteer work, awards and affiliations, and education. We'll break those down a little bit more, but really when you're creating a resume and cover letter, you're thinking about this as almost like your dating profile. That's the example I'm going to use. So your resume is your Hinge profile, the basic information that someone might see when they're deciding whether or not to swipe right or left on you. So you want to put your best foot forward and convince them that you are the person that they want to be dating, or in this case, hire for a job. Same with a cover letter, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Also, a few notes as we get into just the overall recommendations for a resume. Graduating from college, your resume should be 1 page, including all of these sections. At this point, there's really no reason for you to have a resume that is more than 1 page. And I'm happy to talk to any of you after this on a personal basis of why or what sections you should cut out to make it be a page. But if your resume is longer than a page, it's most likely that there is some information that doesn't need to be included at this stage in the game. Moving on to the next slide here. The contact information slide. This is the most important part of your resume. You want to make sure that your entire resume has 0 typos no matter what. I highly recommend you double and triple checking your work, but then sending it to a friend or parent or someone that you trust. I'm sure that your advisor would be happy to as well. Double check your work. Your contact information, however, is what you want to have them see right off the bat. This is the top of your resume. I've included a few different style opportunities here, just as an idea of what can stick out a little bit more without getting too gaudy. I personally am not a fan of including a image of yourself on your resume. I am going to recommend you never use colored paper if you print your resume out. Again, this is your first way of introducing yourself to a potential job or employer. So you want to be thinking as professional as you can and as buttoned up as you can. The reason that I gave you guys these few different opportunities to get a little bit more creative is if you're working in the creative field at all. So communications, marketing, if you get into design, and honestly, any of these areas, I would say the contact information would be kosher for you. It's when you get into more conservative type of jobs. So when you start applying to jobs at hospitals or educational institutions, that you might just want to be a little bit more conservative with the format of your slides. But here are some examples. The main information is obviously your name, your contact information. One thing that I would like to point out is that this top example here includes a LinkedIn profile. And that's something that I actually do recommend just because it's another reference point for the employer to take a look at what you're doing professionally, get to know a little bit more about you. I would say it's optional, but just to put that out there, I would not recommend any other social handles being included on your resume. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I think it's pretty obvious why we don't want to make it too easy for job employers to find our information online. And then you'll see mine at the bottom, which this is my maiden name and none of my accurate contact information, but this is a little bit more on the conservative side for how you'll see a contact information being set up. So nothing earth-shattering there, but just giving you some options. Next slide, we'll move on to the branding statement. So the branding statement here, this can be known as a lot of different things. You may have heard this as a resume objective, a summary statement. You may have never heard of this at all. Truth be told, I've only been including a branding statement or resume objective for the past 2 years on my resume. I hadn't previously found it necessary, especially in combination with a cover letter. However, the trends are coming towards some sort of statement at the beginning of your resume. The reason that I like a branding statement is that this is short and sweet. So thinking about your elevator pitch, generally it's 15 words or less here. Think about what you would say to someone if you only had the amount of time you spent in an elevator with them. So this would be your slogan, something catchy, memorable, attention grabbing. Again, know your audience. So if you are a little bit more on the creative, or you know that your company that you're applying to is more lighthearted, consider that in updating that. If it's someone that's more conservative, you want to talk about your professional skill set and why you're the person for the job. In any way, shape, or form, or any case, you are here to sell yourself. So just something short and sweet here. And then moving on to the next slide, spotlighting your key skills. This is something that can be either listed after your contact information and objective statement, or it can be included at the end. So this is something that I used to include at the end of my resume that is now closer to the top. The reason for that being is that at this point, I am at a place where some of these skills that are bulleted out that I do have, that many of you probably have as well, can just be very quickly included as I'm the right person for the job, hire me. So in the key skills, I did list the top key skills for resumes from Indeed.com here. These can also go into technical or personal. So think about if say you're writing a job, you're applying to a job that has heavy administration skills. You would want them to know that you are strong with Microsoft Office. Maybe it is a job that includes data entry. Those are all things that you could include. Other things to think about. Do you speak a second language? Speaking a second language is incredibly, incredibly valuable in the job hiring market. It sets you apart from other people that may not know this. And even if you are only proficient in speaking another language, I would say that that is worth noting. When you are creating your resume, you're thinking of every single opportunity that sets you apart from the crowd, because you have to consider that every job that you apply to, you are part of a crowd, and it is your job to figure out how to stand out here. So that's definitely one way that you can do so. You can also do personal skills. So if you have a particularly strong attention to detail and your job requires, again, data entry or proofreading, if it's more of a writing job, I would say all of these jobs have attention to detail. So you can think about it from that that standpoint. Team management, collaboration, self-motivation, those are all additional skills that can be added in at here. So again, this can be at the top or bottom of the resume, just depending on where you think it's most valuable. If you really think you need to sell these skills, put it closer to the top. If you just want people to know that you have them, it can go closer to the bottom. Next slide, please. Perfect. So work experience. This is obviously a very big part of your resume that I am not going to spend too much time on, only because we don't have 3 days to talk through it all. So some things that I really want you to know for this. My biggest thing that I look at when I'm looking at resumes is I make sure that first glance, everything follows the same formatting. This is something that you want across your resume and cover letter. But with the work experience here, I mean, make sure that all of your bullets are formatted. Everything is nicely broken out in ways that if someone just skimmed it, they could still get the bulk of everything. So you'll see here, I've included 2 opportunities, imagining that they are the exact same job. So first, you want to list the job that is your most recent job. If for some reason you have 2 jobs at the moment, one you've been working at longer, list that one second. So it would be, say I worked at one job May 2015 to present, and the other May 2018 to present, it would go the job 2018 and then 2015. The biggest difference between present and past tense is that we want to, or the present jobs and the past tense jobs. Present jobs that you're still working at, you would want to make sure that all of the talk is in present tense. So for example, you proactively support and manage the community. You manage partnerships and collaborations. If it's a job in the past, you would say proactively supported and managed online community, managed partnerships and collaborations between companies and other brands. So that's one important thing. And then another few things that you want to think about with the work experience are listing out responsibilities and accomplishments in easy to skim bullets. So again, if this person's only skimming to see if you're a fit, would they see the right stuff just by skimming what is one size larger or bolded? Would they get the gist that you are a quality candidate here? And then also think about action words for your starting each bullet. So when I'm creating the responsibilities that I've had for a particular job, I always think about an action verb followed by what I'm doing there. So thinking of an example here, proactively manages 10 clients that are national and global accounts. Proactively is not necessarily the action word, but you still want something. What are you doing? Support the C-level team is another way that you could start something, but you want to think about what you're doing and make it as engaging as possible there. And then if you're having difficulties, which I know can be a little bit difficult in creating the bullet points underneath your job experience, I would recommend taking a look at the jobs that you're applying to and seeing what the responsibilities are, or seeing what the core functions of a role are. And that might give you some ideas of content to include. I have quite literally, as long as it does align with my professional experience, because it's a big no-no to lie on your resume. But if something is in a job description that the employer is looking for, that I have that experience, I have pulled it from a job posting and included it in my resume in my own words, but making sure that I'm able to transfer my knowledge into my resume. And then also the job seeker sees that I'm a good fit. So while it's a little bit more work from time to time, I think it definitely makes your resume stronger. And I'm a big advocate for knowing your audience and making sure that you're giving them the information that they're looking for to increase your chance of getting the job. Next slide, please. Perfect. Okay, oops, here we go. All right, another area that I am a big fan of, especially for upcoming graduates, is listing your volunteer work, your awards, and your education. So I'm going to do this a little bit backwards just because I want to talk about education real quickly. I have included education at the end of this list of what to include in your resume. Now, with that said, graduating from college, it was the first thing I had listed. I'm going to leave this in your camp to decide what you want to do. And my advice for you here is, if you are particularly pleased and impressed and proud of your GPA, include it up top. If it's something that may not be your strongest suit, that you don't want to have them see first, include it at the bottom. My belief for things down the road is that when you've got enough professional experience, your education is the first to drop off. And everything that I've read and experienced in my professional career is that happens around 5 years. If you've graduated more than 5 years ago, you can drop your education. But again, it can stay at the bottom. I have included this at the bottom for these purposes. And the education section really just says when you graduated, where you graduated from, what your GPA and QPA was, and what your degree was in. Volunteer work and awards. Again, this is something that I think is really important, especially for a recent graduate, because one of the things that I found when looking for my first job was that I didn't feel that I had the necessary experience, but I wanted to show people that I did have the experience or had what it took. And one of the ways that you can do this is listing out any relevant volunteer work. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you include that you picked up trash alongside the highway twice a month for 4 years. However, if you can find a way to make it relevant to what the job is, all good. This is just a way that people get to know you a little bit better. They also might get the idea that you are willing to take on more responsibility or take on work outside of your role. It's a good teamwork identifier that you are good at working on a team. And if you don't have any volunteer work, that's okay too. But even when you're thinking about sororities or fraternities or work that you've done in school that gave you added experience, I would consider throwing it in there, in that section. And if you don't have the relevant, the relevant background experience for a job, volunteer opportunities are a really great job to pad your resume a little bit. So I would say it's never too late. I did my one and only resume my final senior semester. I had 2 senior years. But my final senior semester, I still hadn't done an internship, and I did that the final semester and also picked up my volunteering just because I knew that it was going to give me a little bit more to work with on my resume. Let's see. So cute little Instagram meme here, but it's really true. I mean, the wordplay on your resume is everything. Think about how you can make something work for the opportunity that you are pursuing. So if you can find that relevancy, it is good to include. Perfect. All right, next slide, please. All right. So I'm just going to go through a few examples of resumes here. We can actually go to the next slide because this is a duplicate slide. So just a few examples of design for resumes so you can get an idea of what you might want your resume to look at. These are just samples. And again, I really think that it's important to make your resume something that speaks to you, but just a few things to call out here. You'll see that this person did choose to add some color to their resume, and I am not opposed to color as long as it's done tastefully. So again, you don't want to submit a resume on blue paper. You don't want to have bright colors. I'm just gonna say, check your fonts, make sure it's nothing too clownish. Don't do Comic Sans as your font, but there are plenty of more modern and professional fonts that work here. You'll also see that the sections are slightly larger, slightly more bold. And then there are areas that, again, have been bolded out throughout so that this person can just very easily skim what you've included in your resume. Next slide is another example. I actually really like the format of this one. This one sort of appeases my desire to have a slightly more conservative but also aesthetically pleasing resume. So this still checks all the boxes here, but you'll see that they've broken it down into a few, I've got background, or a few different sections just to make it a little bit more easy to follow. So there's the contact information, the branding statement, the work experience, education, skills, and personal. This person obviously did not include their education section in there, but again, for a one page, I mean, you could probably find they did include it. I'm sorry, I missed that. Next slide, please. This is another example, again, same idea in terms of how they broke it up into sections. This person added a little bit more color into the document, but still kept it in a way that didn't seem unnecessarily flashy. Again, same sort of breakdown. You'll see that they included the education up top here, and then the professional experience listing various details, keeping the format throughout. Next slide, please. This is just one more example, again, a little bit more on the conservative side. However, you'll see that everything was broken down nicely into having some sort of aesthetic breakdown. All of the formatting is the same throughout, so you'll see the all caps subject or sections there, the name slightly bolder and large, just so that the eye follows throughout the resume there. Next slide. We will get into our cover letters. And this is actually a question that I have asked myself multiple times. I'm not gonna lie, the cover letter is one of those things that I just never really wanted to do, but it has value. And if nothing else, I wholeheartedly feel that it is a way that sets you apart from anyone else that doesn't submit a cover letter. And even if someone does submit a cover letter, this can be the way that helps you stand out as well. So next slide, please. What is the point of a cover letter? So your resume, we talked about the resume and cover letter as sort of your dating profile. And I would compare the resume to being that pre-area, and I don't know much about dating sites, so I apologize, but that pre-area where you get that initial information and you decide to swipe right or left. Good news, your resume is solid. So you made it onto the cover letter portion of the dating site. The cover letter is the area that allows you to expand on your resume, get a little bit more creative, explain how your experience is relevant to the company, and basically why hiring you is a good idea. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think that the cover letter is a great place to professionally kiss some tush. There you go. This is where you really just let them know that you want the job, you're the right person for the job, and you've admired the job for a long period of time. Next slide, please. So this is the example I've used to give you a good example for a cover letter. This is obviously a little bit on the shorter side and a little bit joking. However, this is an example from Luke Skywalker. Greetings, Exalted One. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight and friend to Captain Solo. And then the person reviewing this says they have a polite greeting. So this is definitely, I mean, if you go, as we go through this section by section, this is actually how you should be approaching your cover letters. You want a polite greeting right off the bat, and then introduce yourself, talk about who you are and why you are qualified for the job. I know that you are powerful, mighty Jabba, and that your anger with Solo must be equally powerful. I seek an audience with your greatness to bargain for Solo's life. So here, Luke Skywalker is establishing his credentials, saying why he would be a good fit and why what he's looking for is in line with what Jabba is looking for in someone to bargain with Solo's life. With your wisdom, I'm sure that we can work out an arrangement which will be mutually beneficial and enable us to avoid any unpleasant confrontation. So again, establishing purpose. I seek an audience with your greatness to bargain for Solo's life, and then show that you can, or show what you can bring to the organization. So as a token of my goodwill, I present to you a gift, these two droids. Both are hardworking and will serve you well. So just to break this down into a way that would make sense for you professionally, again, we're starting here with the cover letter, and just for sake of knowing what you're looking for, we definitely want a cover letter under 1 page. And if you're looking for word count, think about 300 to 500 words. This is sort of an expanded elevator pitch, but we want to include a nice greeting, which we'll get into in a moment, and then introduce yourself, say why you're interested in the job, why you feel you're a good fit, and then expand into that into the next paragraph or two before closing out with a call to action. We can move on to the next slide where we'll break that down a little bit more. So core components of a cover letter. Know your audience. If I haven't said this yet, I'll probably say it a couple more times in the time that we have today. I am a big believer of making sure that you know the job that you are applying for. And so if you really want the job, I highly recommend doing some research to look into the company to understand what they do. A really good recommendation is take a look at their social media pages, take a look at their website, just start to understand how they communicate and what they're looking for. Take a look at their mission statement, their about section. That will help you understand what they feel is valuable. And if you can line yourself in line with that as sort of a core belief that you have as well, that's excellent. Cover letter, again, make it easy to read. Assume that the person has 30 seconds of your time. So, and that they're not interested in reading any of these cover letters. So make it as easy to read, match it aesthetically, format-wise with your resume throughout. Keep it to a single page, like I mentioned. 300 to 500 words is generally more than enough. And I think that the trend is making these shorter and shorter as the years continue. But overarching things that you want to make sure you're communicating in this are to demonstrate that you're a good fit. Be confident, but not arrogant. This is your chance to sell yourself and convince the people that you are the right person for the job, even if you might not be. This is where you convince yourself that you have the skills, but you want to make sure that you're not being too arrogant in that, because that's not going to get you anywhere. And then we'll get into this a little bit more, but in terms of writing, knowing your audience, I do recommend writing unique cover letters for each company. While a general cover letter might be appropriate just to have something that you can update each time, or if you're sending out a lot of, or if you're leaving cover letters and resumes at a job fair, for example, a general cover letter might be okay. But if it's for a job that you are individually applying to, and especially if it's something that you really want, I wholeheartedly recommend tailoring your cover letter each and every single time that to play along with the the applicant or the employer. Next slide, please. Just some quick formatting information on a cover letter. I like to recommend this just because it's a nice, it shows that you've put the time in to make sure that you know what you're looking for. You can find tons of resume resources, cover letter resources online, but I wanted to just walk you through a few things here. So I've always started my cover letters, even if it's just an attachment to an email, with this format. So the first format being my name, my mailing address, and then the date. Single break, followed by the person that you're applying to. In most cases, I find that you can find the person who you're applying to if you do the research. Most job postings will list it, or you can find something with very quick research. If you can't find anything at all, you can keep this blank. But I always think that if you can make one more tiny thing that sets you apart and proves that you went the extra mile, it's always worth doing. And even if you get the person wrong, even if it's not Jane that you're writing to and it's actually Jane's colleague, Jim, I think that added effort really goes an extra mile. So including the information there, the address is just the name of the business. So even if they've got multiple addresses, you can just use the main address. And then the intro, I start with a very simple and professional intro there, just Jane with the colon afterwards, and then get into the bulk of the cover letter. Next slide, please. Continuing into the cover letter format, something that I feel is really important is the end of the cover letter. So this is the final paragraph where you tell them that you are excited for the job and you reiterate why you're excited for the job and how they can contact you to set up the job interview that they are going to want to set up for you. So this is where I say you can get not arrogant, but get cocky. Assume that, or make it sound like you're assuming that they're going to reach out to you. I look forward to sitting down with you for an interview. I'm available for an interview at your earliest convenience. I am eager for this job. This is your sign off to let people know that you really want this job, you are the perfect fit, and that you will do what it takes to be the best fit for the job. So I included an example here. I mean, of course, make it what you will. The only other quick recommendation that I would recommend considering is adding in a real signature. Again, it's all about the details, going above and beyond. Two ways that you can do this. You can go to the next slide, please. So two ways that you can add your signature to the resume. Way number one, if you are printing out your resume or your cover letter, and if you are going for an interview in person, always print out a few copies of your resume and cover letter to have on hand. I recommend high quality paper. Just make it as nice as you can. Again, it's that added mile, that extra foot that you've taken there. But just save a spot and print out your name on the piece of paper. If you're doing this electronically, you can create a signature by signing your name on a piece of paper and then scanning it to your computer and making the signature into an image, saving it as a PNG or JPEG. And then every single time you just simply copy the image and paste it in. One way, or there is a software thing that makes it super easy from your phone. I'm sure there are plenty, but if you want one scanning app that doesn't require like a printer scanner at home, it's called Genius Scan. And it's super beneficial for scanning and uploading documents that you may need to send just in general, but this would be a really good way to scan a signature onto your desktop to include in your cover letters. Next slide, please. So submitting your resume and cover letter. Just a few quick recommendations here. Again, for the millionth time, reminding you that this is your chance to get their attention. And unfortunately, there are all kinds of little things that if you don't pay attention to and you miss them, you might potentially lose the job opportunity just by a silly, stupid mistake. So this is where you want to get super, super, super detail oriented here. So keep an eye out for any instructions that they give. Follow the instructions to a T. Do not miss anything. If they require a specific subject line, make sure that you include that. If they don't require a specific subject line, my recommendation for you is to keep it very simple and clear. I would say first name, last name, resume and cover letter attached, or the name of the job and then colon, name, resume attached. Something very simple, but so that they know that it goes straight to that job opportunity. Make sure that you've sent the required attachments. I can promise you that it is super embarrassing to follow up with a prospective job and say, oops, I forgot to attach my resume, or oops, I forgot to attach my cover letter. It happens in real life. It's not the end of the world. I'm not saying that you might not get a job. However, I am saying that these are things that we can control. So any of the things that you can control, do your best to remember to do so. Attachment naming conventions. Did you include your name in the file name? So every single one of the file names should say something. Mine, for example, say Allison Howell resume 2020, Allison Howell cover letter 2020. You want to pretend like these documents got lost from the email and still have the employer be able to figure out who they go to. And then finally, just make sure that you follow all other instructions. You never know when an employer might throw in something really random just in an effort to cross you off the list. My last recommendation, and it kind of gets boiled into all of this here, is have someone proof your work, double proof your work, but also our eyes get tired when we start to ignore our own little typos, even if we've looked at something 8 times. So have a friend or a colleague or a advisor or something triple check your work. They may also be able to recommend some things that you weren't thinking about in terms of formatting or grammar. So definitely have someone look for that. And then we have about 15 minutes left. I have a few other things that I was going to talk about in terms of applying for a job in social media and following up for jobs. But I wanted to see if you did have questions before I got into that, because I'd rather give precedence to questions there. And if you have questions with regards to your job search and what to do and not do, we can definitely go through that too. But I'll take a quick break just to check there.
One of the questions at the very end was, will we have access to the slides?
I am happy to give a copy of my slides to everybody. What I'll probably do is clean them up just a little bit, but yeah, I'd be happy to give you a copy of the slides. I'll also give you my contact information. Actually, I'm going to type my contact information in right now because I didn't add a slide with my contact information, but there's my email address that I just put into the chat. I am more than happy to answer any follow-up questions you guys have regarding cover letter and resumes, unless all of you come out to me and ask me to review your resume. I'd be happy to look at your resume too and make some recommendations or ask questions, but do know that I can be here as a resource to you. And I'm happy to send you these slides too.
And just to repeat your email, if people aren't aware, it's in the chat section. It's AllisonHowell@gmail.com.
Correct. And you can also find me other places as well. I'll let you hunt me down in that regard. But I am available other places and you can reach out to me there if you'd like as well. And if there are no other questions, I can give some tips on applying to jobs online with regards to being on social media and that sort of thing. And if you do have questions, please put them in. So I'll just give you some quick information about applying to jobs. I mean, obviously, even before COVID came along, we were doing some stuff in terms of, we generally submitted our jobs online, but we're doing a lot more online now. So when it comes to applying online, you want to follow all the rules in terms of submitting your resume and cover letter that we just covered. However, I would highly recommend across the board making sure that your social media pages are as clean as possible. If you are in the middle of a job search, make your pages private. I cannot stress that enough. It is the easiest way, but also double check your Facebook to make sure you don't have anything public. You can do public view to make sure that you don't have any photos that 33-year-old you might not want to be seen of 23-year-old you. They exist, each and every single one of us has them. But when it comes to social media, I tend to take a very conservative approach to what people can see. And just in general, I mean, you want to think about that in terms of what you're sharing too, but especially with your job search, I would not have anything iffy out there. And I would keep your pages profile or private. I also would not recommend using social media for your job search. Now, I say that, and there will be people that with their experience will say that they found a job through their uncle's brother by posting on Facebook. And it could happen. I actually just saw something on Nextdoor where someone was reaching out for jobs. I think that using your job search in a targeted approach is a lot better. So when you hear of these opportunities, you can reach out to the people individually, but just be careful about what you're putting out there. Another thing with regards to following up for jobs that I really think is important, and I don't think that necessarily everyone thinks about it, is I highly recommend if you want this job, follow up with them after an interview. So if you submit the job and you haven't heard back yet, you can follow up within a few days just to see what their hiring process is like, when you can expect to hear from them. If you've interviewed with them, I always recommend that you follow up the same day with a short email, thanking them for their time, re-expressing your interest in the job. If you are interviewing with multiple people, so sometimes you'll have a panel interview, I would email the entire group at once, try to get all of their information. If you can't get all of their information, at least get the main person and they may pass it along. But definitely always follow up. Never feel like you're being too irritating in that regard. I mean, of course, you don't want to be irritating, but you do want to follow up probably more than what you feel would be comfortable. And then final, that's everything I have. I've included some do's and don'ts at the end of the slides that just reiterate everything. They're not over, we'll go through them. Here they are. So these reiterate some of the stuff that we talked about. These will be included in the slides if anyone wants a copy of them. Resume and cover letters, this pretty much goes across the board. Do focus on what's in it for the company. Think about how you can benefit the company, what your addition to the team benefits the company. Talk about your accomplishments. Again, this is your chance to be confident, not arrogant, but confident in what you have as a professional. Customize your resume and cover letter for the job. I know that this sounds like extra work, but I really think that it really makes a difference, especially when they know that you've read the job description and you've pulled that relevant job description into your cover letter and resume. Every word and keyword counts. The reason for this is that we don't want to have unnecessary words and keywords in there. You want to imagine that these people are giving you 30 seconds to 1 minute, and what would you want them to see? And then don'ts. Never lie on your resume. It's not worth it. It's just a horrible move in general, but even if it's tempting, even if it's the smallest thing, it's really, really not worth it to lie on your resume. It's going to come back to bite you. Do not include anything irrelevant in the job description. At this point, I'm saying this just because you have limited pages to work with. You really want to keep your cover letter and resume 1 page each. So anything irrelevant can just be cut. It's been said that anything older than 10 years is unnecessary. So as tempting as it would be to prove your job experience by listing your job at, well, okay, I'll use me. I worked 3 shifts at McDonald's when I was 15, and I really wanted to include that on my college job experience college job resume to try to prove to people that I had more experience than I did. But then I realized that none of the things that I did had anything to do with the jobs that I was applying for. And I didn't have the space, so they got deleted. Do not ignore details like spelling, grammar, and formatting. This is probably the most important thing in my opinion, because that is the #1 reason that I will throw away a resume. It doesn't matter what the content is. People are looking for reasons to exclude candidates. And at least for me, if I see spelling errors, grammar and formatting errors that I feel should have been caught, which in your cover letter and resume, that's everything, I will, I'll just toss it in the trash. My husband works in cytotechnology, and I was helping go through some resumes in the past, and someone applying for a job in cytotechnology spelled cytotechnology wrong. And at the end of the day, the other applicant or the other people reviewing the resumes saw nothing wrong with this, and thought the person was strong, but they ultimately decided not to proceed because they had other strong applicants, and this person had this one simple but very big error in their resume. And then finally, don't overstuff your cover letter and resume with too much information. Again, it comes back to the make every word and keyword count. Imagine that they are really just sort of uninterested in your information and are going to skim through it. If you focus on the information that you want them to see, everything's going to fall into place. This is really your chance to shine and prove to people that you have the skills and have the work ethic. I mean, even it goes a long way some days when you can prove to people that where you have shortcomings, you're willing to work twice as hard. A lot of people are looking for that these days. And if you convince someone that you have what it takes and you are willing to put in the work, that can make such a difference. So these little tips and tricks that seem sort of unnecessary can really make a difference and get you the interview that you may not have otherwise gotten just by taking those extra steps. So we are running short on time. I want to give you the opportunity to answer any questions. They are going to ask some questions of you before the end, but that's pretty much where I stop yammering now.
On behalf of Clarion and CalU, we want to thank you for being one of our key presenters today. And to all the students, this will go on the rest of the week, so we hope you participate and take advantage of the surveys that will be at the end of each session. So, and if nothing else, Allison is open to you sending questions to her after the session. So please take advantage of her talent and expertise. We rarely get as good of presenters as we have this week. So thank you again, Allison. And I thank you also, Chrissy, my colleague down at CalU, for all her expertise. And we hope you all learned something from this. So again, if you haven't signed up for everything else, these will go on the rest of the week. I don't have anything else to add. Chrissy, have I missed anything?
I don't think so. So thank you all so very much. Can you hear me? Is it still muted? Can you hear me? Okay.
Very clearly.
Okay. But thank you so much, Allison, for bearing with me at the very beginning, but awesome information, great tips. I really appreciate it. I learned something new I can share with students as well too. So I really appreciate it. But we don't have any additional information, but students, if you do have, Allison's contact information was, I believe, still in that chat box, but feel free to also reach out to your University Career Center to get her information. And then these presentations will be, I believe, emailed out. The recordings will be emailed out to those who registered or pre-registered, and then also available on different our university YouTube channels as well. And if we don't have any additional questions, let me double check. Mark, if you saw any additional things.
Most of them are thank yous from the students here. So again, a good group, and we thank all of you students for participating today.
Awesome.
Thanks so much,
Thanks.
everyone. If you need anything at all, I'm more than willing to help out. I've been in your shoes before and had a really great mentor that helped me with cover letters and resumes. So I want to be that person if you need it. No pressure. We may never talk ever again, but if we do, I look forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, thank you all. Stay well and see ya.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.